Well, listen, a major event takes place here, Arn, July 1993. You ready for this? WCW begins recording shows at Disney MGM. And a lot of people have spoken about this decision over the years. Eric Bischoff defends it, states that it was based on budgetary concerns and, his attempt to reduce the amount of travel. And listen, we should remember Turner is first and foremost a television company. But I want to ask you as a performer, what did you think of the decision to, hey, quit traveling? I think I know what you're going to say. And hey, let's take up some time in residence at MGM.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Because everybody took the opportunity just about and made it a family vacation. You brought the family down there. And while we were doing 3 shows or 4 shows a day for any number of days, sometimes a week, we would be down there and we would be filming that many shows. I mean, they're doing the parks, they're laying out in the sun. We get to see them for dinner at night. We get to see them for just a minute in the mornings before we would go to the to the studios, and there was no driving and no flying. And for the guys, it was awesome.
Were there any concerns on your part about setting that new precedence? As far as, hey, we're not necessarily going to be making the towns and house show. Now all of a sudden we're in one location.
Well, I worry a lot about one of the things that is so important to what we do, honest, real reactions from the fans. And these weren't necessarily wrestling fans that were coming to these shows. This was just like another ride at the park that day. They would come in for an hour. They would watch a 1-hour show, and they would take them out of the building, would bring a fresh crowd in. They were just people. They could have been people from all around the world that had never seen a wrestling match. And I think I was worried that the reaction that we would get from them would hurt the overall show, because there's nothing worse than piping in a bunch of screaming and yaying and booing, and you're looking at the people sitting there and they're not doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
That's terrible.
And it looks dull, and yet you hear all this noise, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist sitting at home to figure out what's happening.
It's being piped in.
And then, too, as a TV company, you realize, hey, they're going to start relying on television and obviously not enough on house show business. And, I don't know. That's a big time move, I guess, in philosophy, when you're moving from those payoffs at the house shows. Here now, all of a sudden, it's more televised wrestling. So.
Well, the way you got away with it is because everybody was on guaranteed contracts. So it didn't matter what the house was. And Turner was paying himself. He owned the TV station, he owned the show, he owned the wrestling company. So he was paying himself, basically. You could get away with it that way. You couldn't have done it if you had an outside television and you weren't getting that revenue from the live events.
And as you said, you were talking about the reaction of the fans. I think some of the beauty of seeing live TV or wrestling events in a variety of locations is seeing how the crowd reacts, what they bring to the table. That's part of it as a fan at home, is seeing how's that Chicago crowd or that crowd in Atlanta or wherever the case may be. And when you lose that and it becomes sterile, I'm sorry, it's going to affect the product over time.
Great observation. And the reality is, for the cities around the country that had gotten wrestling and were used to getting a show every 3 months or, whatever it may be, 4 months, 2 months, the great cities, the Atlantas, the Jacksonville, Floridas, the Greensboros, all the great wrestling cities, you name them, Chicago, whatever
Philadelphia,
the case,
yeah.
Philadelphia, name them, they're not getting shows. And you cannot neglect wrestling fans. They want the reason wrestling has never died, Paul, is because the fans don't want it dead. That's pure, simple fact.
And that's where the growth comes. When you're out traveling, that's where the growth comes. We have an event in your town. Come see us. All right, I'll take my kids. The kids get hook, line, and sinker from a live event. And I'm telling you, that's where that starts to really pay off. And when you don't have that or in your town or in your area, or that opportunity to be at a hotel or whatever, whatever the case may be, it's going to have an impact on the business.